In the world of medicine, words can literally be a matter of life and death. And I'm not just talking about big, complex diagnoses. I'm talking about the small, everyday words that, if you get them wrong, can have massive consequences for a patient's safety. So let's dive into why. I know, it sounds a little dramatic, doesn't it? But just imagine this for a second. A nurse is at the end of a long shift, handing over critical patient info to a colleague. In that moment, the precision of their language, every single word, isn't just important, it's everything. This quote really gets right to the heart of it. This isn't just about good grammar or sounding smart. It's about making sure an entire healthcare team is on the exact same page. Because even a tiny misunderstanding could lead to the wrong treatment or a missed diagnosis. So this brings us to a really critical idea. In healthcare, good enough English just doesn't cut it. Being precise with your language is just as vital as knowing how to read a chart or give someone their medication. It's a core skill. Okay, let's start with what seems like the small stuff. The words we barely even notice. Articles like a and the, and prepositions like at or on. They might seem tiny, but as you're about to see, they act like powerful little navigators for the entire meaning of a sentence. I mean, just look at the difference one tiny letter makes here. Few days basically implies almost none, maybe one or two. A few days means some. When you're talking about when symptoms started, that's two completely different timelines. The potential for confusion is just huge. And prepositions are just as tricky. When we talk about time, English uses at for these precise points, like the end of a week or the end of a shift. Saying on the end is a super common error, but correcting it makes sure everyone is on the exact same page about timing. No ambiguity. Here's another classic. When you're talking about a starting point or a certain level, the right words are almost always at or with, not from. So, a physical therapy program starts with gentle exercises. A new medication might start at 5 milligrams. This tiny detail gives so much clarity about the baseline of a treatment plan. Now, what about the verb affect? Well, it's a direct action verb, which means it doesn't need a preposition like on tagging along. You just say, stress affects recovery. Throwing in that extra on is a really common slip-up that can just muddy the waters and sound a bit less professional. All right, let's move on to verbs. A great way to think about verb patterns is as the action plans in our sentences. Getting them right isn't just a sign of fluency, it's about preventing some serious misunderstandings about what's supposed to happen next. Okay, this is one of those rules that's actually pretty simple, but so important. Modal verbs, words like can, must, should, will, are always followed by the base form of the next verb. No two in between. So it's we must monitor, never we must to monitor. It's a small change, but it makes a huge difference in clear communication. Okay, this is where things get a little more complex, but it's a really crucial skill to have. Some verbs are just picky. They demand a specific pattern. For example, you recommend reducing a dosage, but you decide to postpone an operation. You can't swap them. Mastering these pairings is absolutely key to giving clear instructions. Now, a really common trap is to blend these two patterns together, saying something like, the patient started to improving. It happens, especially when you're thinking fast, but it just creates confusion. Interestingly, the verb start is flexible. You can say started to improve or started improving. The key is you gotta pick one and stick with it. No mixing. Okay, let's talk about choosing the right words, because upgrading your vocabulary isn't about trying to sound fancy. It's about being precise, being efficient, and being instantly understood by your colleagues in a high-stakes clinical setting. So for instance, a patient might walk in and talk about their under-eye puffiness. But in a medical report, the term everyone expects to see is periorbital edema. And the reason why is actually incredibly important. It's because edema isn't just a description, it's a diagnosis. It communicates a very specific medical process involving fluid accumulation. That one word carries so much more information for another professional than just saying something looks puffy. And the same thing goes for verbs. Instead of saying a patient's levels went back to normal, the clinical terms normalized or stabilized are just more concise and professional. They efficiently communicate a very specific state of recovery. And hey, this isn't just limited to clinical conversations. Over in hospital administration, you probably wouldn't talk about a big purchase for a new MRI machine. The standard professional term is a major purchase. Using that right language shows you understand the professional context you're in. So after all that, what does this all add up to? Well, it's pretty simple, really. In healthcare, clarity is a form of care. Precise communication is absolutely fundamental to keeping patients safe. Now, let's look at a sentence that pulls everything we've talked about together. It's clear, it's professional, and there is zero ambiguity. Just notice how every single word in there has a very precise job to do. Let's just break this down real quick. You can see how it all fits together perfectly. You've got the correct preposition for time, the precise clinical vocabulary, and two different verbs, each followed by exactly the right pattern. This is what clear, effective medical communication looks like in action. So ultimately, the big takeaway here is simple. Mastering these details isn't about sounding smart or passing some grammar test. It's not about vanity. It is a practical, essential tool for building trust, ensuring accuracy, and most importantly, protecting patients. And that leaves us with a final thought to chew on. Whether you're in medicine, engineering, law, whatever it is you do, what are the small words or phrases in your line of work that carry the most weight? You know, the ones where a tiny mistake could have really big consequences. It's definitely something worth thinking about. Thanks for tuning in.